My name is Roxy Donovan, and I'm 33 years old. 6 months ago, I sat at the far end of my parents' dining table while my father signed a check for $180,000 to erase my twin sister's debt. Becky was crying. My mother, Jolie, kept rubbing her back. And my father, Norman, looked proud as he pushed the check across the table. Then he turned to me, not because he wanted my opinion, because he wanted an audience. Some people are worth saving, he said. Some people are just bad investments. He smiled when he said it, like he had finally found the perfect way to explain my place in the family. What Norman did not know was that, before that year ended, he would walk into a conference room begging for one final chance to save the company he had spent 30 years building. He also did not know the woman sitting across from him would be me. But before I tell you how my father lost control of everything he once used to control me, welcome to Silent Grudge Stories, where family secrets surface, favoritism leaves scars, and the person everyone underestimates eventually gets a voice. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what city you are listening from today. And if stories like this stay with you, subscribe to the channel. Because the check my father handed Becky that night was not the first bad decision he made. It was simply the one that finally brought all the others back to him. The dinner had started as one of my mother's so-called family emergencies. Jolie called me 3 times during work. On the 4th call, I answered, Roxy, you need to come tonight. What happened? It's Becky. By the time I arrived, Becky was seated beside Norman, wearing a cream sweater that probably cost more than my first month's rent. Norman had placed a leather folder in front of him. I sat across from them. Jolie had cooked Becky's favorite meal, but my place held only a glass of water. Norman opened the folder. Becky's company has encountered temporary cash flow issues. I looked at the pages. 3 default notices, 2 personal loans, a business credit line, $180,000 in total debt. Temporary, I asked. Norman's eyes hardened. This is not the time for judgment. I didn't judge her. I read the numbers. Norman slid the check toward her. I am paying it in full. Jolie exhaled as if he had saved someone's life. Becky covered her mouth and started crying harder. I watched the check move beneath her fingers. The same father who once refused to lend me $900 when my car transmission failed had just erased 6 figures of my sister's mistakes without asking one question. Thank you, Dad, Becky whispered. You have potential, he said. You made one bad decision. That doesn't make you a failure. That sentence told me everything. When Becky failed, it was a mistake. When I struggled, it was proof. Jolie gave me a warning look, the same one she used whenever Norman was about to humiliate me and wanted me to make it easier for him. So I asked the only question that mattered. Why did you call me here? Because family should understand where our resources are going. Becky has vision. She takes risks. She builds things. She borrowed $180,000 and lost it. She tried. So did I. 7 years earlier, I had asked him for $2,000 to complete a professional certification. I had saved the other $6,000 myself. He refused before I finished speaking. His exact words were still carved into me. I don't throw money at bad investments. Now he folded his hands and said it again. Paying for you would have been the worst investment of my life. Norman pointed at the check. This is what investing in potential looks like. Because while Norman sat there deciding which daughter had value, I had already spent 7 years building a life he knew nothing about. He did not know whose money I managed. He did not know which companies trusted my judgment. And he had no idea that his own business had recently appeared on my desk. So I stood. Congratulations, Becky. Norman looked offended by my lack of reaction. That's all you have to say? I picked up my coat. No. I looked directly at him. But the rest will make more sense later. Then I walked out while my father laughed behind me. He thought I had nothing. He was wrong. The next morning, I received the file that would eventually put his company in my hands. The file arrives at exactly 8:12 the next morning. I almost ignore the notification. Friday mornings are usually packed with portfolio reviews, client calls, and risk assessments. My assistant rarely marks anything as urgent unless it affects one of our largest accounts. This one does. Priority acquisition candidate. I open the report while the elevator climbs toward the 26th floor. The company name freezes me in place. Donovan Industrial Systems. My father's company. For a brief second, the elevator feels smaller. Not because I'm emotional. Because I understand exactly what this file means. Companies don't appear on my desk unless someone with serious money is considering buying them. I read the executive summary once. Then again. Revenue down. Credit lines shrinking. Major supplier disputes. Cash reserves dangerously low. The company Norman has spent 30 years bragging about is quietly bleeding. No one at home mentioned any of this. Of course they didn't. In my family, appearances have always been more valuable than reality. The elevator doors open. I walk straight to my office without saying good morning to anyone. By the time I finish reading the report, one thought keeps repeating inside my head. He doesn't know he's already losing. A knock interrupts me. Nathan Wolfe steps inside carrying another folder. You've seen it. I have. What do you think? I think someone hid these numbers for a long time. Nathan nods. So did our analysts. He sits across from me. There are rumors they're looking for emergency capital. I believe it. He studies my face for a moment. You know the owner. I don't answer immediately. Unfortunately, Nathan doesn't ask another question. One of the reasons I trust him is that he never mistakes curiosity for professionalism. If the acquisition moves forward, he says, someone from our side will eventually have to negotiate directly. I know. You okay? I close the folder. I'm perfectly fine. That isn't entirely true. Not because I'm afraid of facing my father. Because for the first time, our worlds are moving toward each other, and only one of them can stay standing. 7 years earlier, Norman made sure everyone in the family knew exactly what kind of investment I was. It happened 3 weeks after I completed the application for my financial analyst certification. I had already saved almost everything myself. Worked evenings, skipped vacations, sold my old jewelry, took freelance bookkeeping jobs on weekends. I needed just $2,000 to finish the certification. $2,000. Less than Becky spent on handbags every season. I waited until after dinner. Norman was reading the newspaper. Dad! He didn't even lower it. What? I've almost saved enough for my certification. Silence. I only need $2,000 more. He folded one page. And I'll pay you back. Still nothing. It's not really a loan, I continued carefully. It's an investment in my career. That finally made him laugh. Not a small laugh. A loud one. The kind meant for everyone in the room. Jolie looked down immediately. Becky smiled into her phone. Norman lowered the newspaper. Investment. He repeated the word like it was ridiculous. You actually believe you're an investment? I believe I can build a career. No. His voice became colder. You'll build a paycheck. He pointed toward Becky. She builds opportunities. Then back at me. You build stability. As if stability were an insult. It isn't. He leaned back. It's just not valuable. I remember every word. Because each sentence landed slower than the one before. Becky has ambition. So do I. No. He shook his head. You have discipline. That's different. It wins. It follows. I stared at him. He stared right back. Then he said the sentence that shaped the next 7 years of my life. I don't finance people who will spend their lives working for someone else. Jolie finally spoke. Norman. He raised one finger. I'm not finished. Then he looked directly into my eyes. If I have $2,000, I'd rather lose it in the stock market than invest it in you. Nobody reacted. Nobody defended me. Becky simply stood up. I'm meeting friends. She kissed Norman on the cheek. Thanks again for covering Cabo. Cabo. That trip had cost almost $11,000. My certification required $2,000. Norman smiled proudly as she walked out. Then he looked back at me. You should learn from your sister. I stood quietly, picked up my folder, and walked toward the front door. Jolie followed me outside. Don't take it personally. I laughed. The sound surprised even me. What part wasn't personal? He just believes Becky needs more help. No. I looked back through the window. Norman was already laughing at something on television. He believes she's worth helping. Jolie had no answer. Neither did I. Not then. But that night, sitting alone inside my apartment with overdue bills spread across the kitchen table, I stopped asking myself how to earn my father's respect. Instead, I asked a different question. What if I built a life where his opinion had absolutely no value? That single decision changes everything. Because less than 48 hours later, someone I have never met walks into my office and unknowingly becomes the first person to invest in me. Monday morning, the receptionist tells me someone is waiting in conference room 3. He doesn't have an appointment. Who is he? He says you'll want to meet him. I doubt that. She hesitates. He mentioned your certification paper. That makes me stop walking. Only 3 people outside my department have ever read that paper. Nathan appears beside me. I already checked him out. And retired. Former CEO. Built 3 companies. Sold all 3. He specifically asked for you. I glanced through the conference room window. An older man sits alone, reading one of the financial magazines lying on the table as if he has nowhere else to be. Calm. Patient. Completely unlike the executives who usually demand immediate attention. I step inside. I'm Roxy Donovan. Without standing, he closes the magazine. I know. I'm Arthur Hayes. I shake his hand. His grip is firm. His expression impossible to read. I've heard impressive things about you. I wasn't aware anyone outside this building knew my name. They don't. I do. He slides a folder toward me. My family office has been using the same advisors for 12 years. They've become comfortable. Comfortable people stop asking difficult questions. I open the folder. Nearly every page contains handwritten notes, investment reports, private holdings, business valuations, almost $800 million under management. I want a second opinion on everything, especially the things everyone tells me not to question. For the next 2 hours, he says very little. Instead, he watches. Every time I point out an inconsistency, he makes another note. Every time I ask another question, he smiles slightly. By the end of the meeting, my coffee is cold. His notebook is full. Finally, he closes it. Most people tell wealthy clients what they want to hear. You told me where I was losing money. I assume that's why you came. It is. He stands. I'll be moving my accounts. I blink. You haven't even seen my recommendations yet. I already have. I've seen how you think. Then he leaves. No dramatic speech. No compliments. No promises. Nathan walks in 30 seconds later. How'd it go? I'm not sure. He looks toward the hallway. The man you just met controls more companies than half the people on Wall Street. I stare at the closed door. Why me? Nathan shrugs. Maybe because you treated his money like it was yours. 3 months later, my entire life changes. Arthur transfers every portfolio, every company, every trust, every long-term investment. Not to the firm, to my division. The promotion comes with an office almost twice the size. A larger team, clients whose names regularly appear on financial news. I don't celebrate. I work. Earlier. Later. Weekends. If Arthur trusted me with his fortune, I refused to give him one reason to regret it. Meanwhile, I hear about Becky through family group messages. Pictures from Europe. Luxury resorts. Designer stores. A new SUV. Captions filled with words like blessed, grateful, manifesting abundance. Norman comments on every post. That's my girl. One Saturday afternoon, my phone rings. Jolie. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Hi, Mom. Your father wants everyone here tomorrow. What happened? Becky's celebrating. What now? Her business is expanding. I close my eyes. Of course it is. Sunday evening. I walk into my parents' house. The dining room is full. Champagne. Flowers. A giant banner. Congratulations, Becky. Norman spots me immediately. You actually came. You said it was important. It is. He taps his glass. I have an announcement. Everyone becomes quiet. My daughter Becky has secured funding to expand her company. Applause fills the room. Norman beams with pride. I've decided to become her primary investor. More applause. Then, he looks at me. You should pay attention. Here we go. This, he says while resting a hand on Becky's shoulder, is what ambition looks like. Becky smiles modestly, as if none of this has been rehearsed. Norman continues. Some people build businesses. His eyes lock onto mine. Others spend their lives helping successful people manage theirs. The room grows strangely quiet. Even distant relatives look uncomfortable. He isn't praising Becky anymore. He's measuring us. Publicly. Again. I heard you've been promoted. I have. Good. He nods. Reliable employees are hard to find. Employees. After everything I'd built. That single word carries exactly the insult he intended. I set my glass down. I like my work. I'm sure you do. But people who change the world. He gestures proudly toward Becky. Take risks. I smile. Very slightly. So do investors. He laughs. No. They simply recognize winners. I hold his gaze for several seconds. Long enough for him to mistake my silence for defeat. Then I answer. Sometimes. They recognize them too late. His smile fades. Just for a second. Only a second. Then he laughs again and turns back toward the guests. The conversation moves on. Nobody notices what just happened. Nobody except Arthur Hayes. Because standing quietly near the entrance, holding an invitation he received from one of Norman's business partners, is the only man in the room who knows exactly how much money I now manage. And for the first time, I notice him watching my father instead of me. Arthur doesn't approach me. He doesn't interrupt the celebration. He simply leaves, but before walking out, our eyes meet for barely 2 seconds. He gives one almost imperceptible nod. Nothing more. At the time, I don't understand what it means. I understand the following Tuesday. Nathan appears at my office carrying a thick black folder. We've finished the preliminary review. I close the client report in front of me. So, he places the folder on my desk. Donovan Industrial is in worse shape than we expected. I open the first page. The numbers hit harder than before. Their largest commercial client has terminated a long-term contract. Operating costs have climbed for 3 consecutive years. 2 banks have quietly reduced their available credit. Several suppliers have shortened payment deadlines. The company isn't collapsing yet, but it's no longer growing. It's surviving, and surviving is expensive. I continue reading. Then one detail catches my attention. Executive withdrawals. I stop. What is this? Nathan walks beside my desk. Those are distributions taken by the ownership. I scan the figures. Luxury vehicle purchases, vacation properties, personal consulting expenses, private memberships. Nearly every large withdrawal leads back to one place. Norman. Some to Jolie. Several. To Becky. I lean back. So while the company lost money, Nathan finishes the sentence. They kept spending like nothing had changed. I close the folder. They're financing appearances. Exactly. A long silence settles between us. Nathan finally speaks. Arthur asks for one thing. What? If this opportunity moves forward, he wants you leading every recommendation. I blink. Me. He specifically requested it. I don't answer. Not because I'm surprised. Because I suddenly remember something Norman said years ago. People like you spend their lives making money for other people. The irony almost makes me laugh. Because now, his future may depend on exactly that. 3 weeks later, Jolie calls again. This time, her voice sounds almost cheerful. Roxy, are you free Friday night? I usually work. You should come anyway. Why? Your father wants to celebrate. What now? Becky signed another expansion. I close my eyes. Another expansion. Another celebration. Another excuse to remind me who the favorite daughter is. Friday evening. Nothing has changed. The same dining room. The same polished table. The same expensive wine. The same empty warmth. Norman stands as I walk in. There she is. I sit without responding. Becky is glowing. Diamond earrings. New designer watch. She notices me looking. Dad insisted. Of course he did. Dinner barely begins before Norman taps his glass. I have another announcement. Nobody speaks. I've decided to increase my investment in Becky's company. Applause. Again. He reaches into his jacket, pulls out another envelope. I've also personally guaranteed the new business loan. Becky jumps up and hugs him. I won't let you down. I know you won't. I watch quietly. Nathan's report flashes through my mind. Shrinking credit, falling cash reserves, banks pulling away. And now, personal guarantees. Norman isn't investing anymore. He's gambling. He turns toward me. I hope you're learning something tonight. I'm always learning. Good. He smiles confidently. Because managing money and building wealth are two very different things. I agree. He doesn't expect that answer. He keeps going anyway. You've made a comfortable career. Comfortable. Another carefully chosen word. But comfort never built an empire. No. I nod calmly. Discipline usually does. He laughs loudly enough for everyone to hear. No one remembers disciplined people. They remember visionaries. Becky raises her wine glass. To vision. Everyone drinks. Except me. Norman notices. Not celebrating. I don't celebrate debt. The room freezes. Becky's smile disappears instantly. What is that supposed to mean? It means exactly what I said. Norman's expression hardens. My daughter's company is growing. I hope it is. It is. I sincerely hope the numbers agree. Silence. Real silence. Norman slowly places his glass on the table. You think because you work around rich people, you understand business? No. I understand balance sheets. His jaw tightens. You're becoming arrogant. No. I'm becoming experienced. For a moment, I think he's going to explode. Instead, he smiles. The fake smile he always uses before trying to humiliate me. You've always been jealous of Becky. Becky immediately lowers her eyes. Perfect timing. Perfect performance. I shake my head. I've never wanted Becky's life. You wanted her opportunities. No. I looked directly at my sister. I wanted parents who believed both daughters deserved one. Nobody moves. Jolie quietly wipes away a tear. Norman refuses to look at her. Instead, he stands. If you can't be happy for your own sister, maybe you shouldn't come anymore. I stand too. I wasn't planning to. I pick up my coat. Halfway to the door, Norman speaks one last time. You'll understand one day. I stop walking. No. Without turning around, I answer calmly. You're the one who's about to understand. Then I leave. Behind me, I hear Becky asking what I meant. Norman tells her not to worry. He says I'm bluffing. He says I've always needed attention. He says none of this matters. The problem is that at exactly the same moment he's dismissing me, Arthur Hayes is sitting inside another boardroom, looking at Donovan Industrial's financial statements, and asking a single question that changes everything. How much would it cost to buy control? Arthur doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he closes the financial report and looks around the boardroom. 8 executives, 2 attorneys, 3 senior analysts. Everyone is waiting for his opinion. Finally, he asks the question again. How much would it cost to acquire control? One of the analysts slides another report across the table. If the current trend continues, less than anyone expected 6 months ago. Arthur nods once. What about management? Nathan answers. Norman Donovan still believes he's negotiating from a position of strength. Arthur almost smiles. He isn't. Another executive clears his throat. There is one complication. Arthur looks up. The daughter. Nathan glances toward me. Roxy. The executive nods. She shares the owner's last name. Arthur doesn't even hesitate. She shares his name, not his judgment. The room falls silent. Then Arthur turns toward me. If this moves forward, I want every recommendation coming from you. One executive looks surprised. You don't think that's a conflict? Arthur shakes his head. No. I think it's accountability. Then he stands. Meeting adjourned. 3 days later, Norman calls me. Not because he misses me. Not because he wants to apologize. Because he wants something. Roxy, I only have a few minutes. I heard Arthur Hayes has become one of your clients. That surprises me. Word travels faster than I expected. I can't discuss clients. I'm not asking you to. Good. I wanted to congratulate you. I almost laugh. It is the first compliment I remember hearing from him in years. Too bad it isn't real. He continues. You've built a respectable little career. Little. Even now. He cannot help himself. Thank you. I've actually been thinking. Dangerous words. You've spent years around investors. I have. You probably know people who are looking for opportunities. There it is. Finally. What kind of opportunities? Our company is preparing for a new phase. Interesting. Nathan's report called it something else. Liquidity pressure. Norman calls it expansion. Same numbers. Different story. If I meet anyone interested, I'll let them know. I appreciate that. He sounds relieved. Then he adds something that instantly reminds me exactly who he is. You finally found a way to be useful to the family. The line goes quiet. He waits for gratitude. Instead, I answer calmly. I've always been useful. I simply stopped proving it to people who refused to see it. I hang up. Monday morning. Nathan appears outside my office again. You'll want to see this. He hands me another report. This one isn't about Donovan Industrial. It's about Becky. Her company. I open it. Then my stomach tightens. Outstanding supplier balances. Payroll delays. Tax liens beginning to appear. Luxury spending increasing. Personal withdrawals continuing. I look up. She took money out. Nathan nods. Repeatedly. Instead of stabilizing the business. Exactly. The more I read, the clearer it becomes. The first $180,000 didn't save the company. It delayed its collapse. And Becky never changed. She simply believed another rescue would always come. The office phone rings. Nathan answers. After a few seconds, he covers the receiver. It's Arthur. I take the call. Good morning. His voice remains calm. I had dinner with 2 commercial bankers yesterday. And they're preparing to reduce Donovan Industrial's remaining credit facilities. I close my eyes. So it's happening. Faster than expected. He pauses. People think companies collapse because they run out of money. They don't. They collapse because people stop believing they'll recover. Another silence. Then Arthur asks something unexpected. If Norman called today, would you save him? I don't answer immediately. Because I honestly don't know. He waits. Finally, I tell the truth. I don't want revenge. I know. I don't want to destroy him. I know. I just don't want him deciding my value anymore. Arthur's voice softens. Good. Never negotiate while trying to heal old wounds. The call ends. I remain staring at the city outside my window. His words stay with me. Because he's right. This cannot become emotional. It has to become professional. Otherwise, I'll lose exactly what I spent years building. That weekend, Jolie appears at my apartment unannounced. She has never visited before. She stands outside holding a homemade pie, the same apple pie she baked every year for Becky's birthday. I was nearby. She wasn't. My apartment is 40 minutes from their house. I invite her inside anyway. She looks around. Small, modern, comfortable. Everything here belongs to me. She notices the frame certifications on the wall, the awards, the industry recognitions, the newspaper article featuring my team. She studies each one quietly. I didn't know. No, you didn't. Her eyes begin filling with tears. We missed so much. I don't answer. Because we didn't. They did. She finally whispers. Your father still thinks everything will work out. I look directly at her. Does he know the banks are pulling away? Her face changes instantly. Just for a second. Enough. Enough to tell me everything. She didn't come here to reconnect. She came because she's scared. And before she leaves, she says something that confirms exactly how desperate things have become. Roxy, if your father asked for your help, would you at least listen? I don't answer, because at that exact moment, Nathan is calling my phone. When I pick up, his first sentence changes everything. Norman just requested an emergency meeting with Arthur Hayes. Nathan doesn't waste time. He asked for Arthur specifically. When? Tomorrow morning. I stand. So soon. He doesn't have a choice anymore. Nathan places another document in front of me. They officially breached one of their banking covenants this morning. I scan the page. Required liquidity. Missed. Debt ratio. Exceeded. Working capital. Below minimum. Every number points in the same direction. The company isn't preparing for a difficult year anymore. It's fighting for survival. Nathan folds his arms. The banks gave him 48 hours. And after that, they can accelerate everything. Silence. I already know what that means. Frozen credit. Immediate repayments. Suppliers panicking. Employees hearing rumors. A business doesn't die the day it runs out of money. It dies the day everyone realizes it might. The next morning, Arthur arrives 15 minutes early. He never arrives early. He sits in the conference room, looking through a leather notebook. No laptop, no financial statements, just handwritten notes. I step inside. You wanted to see me. He closes the notebook. I wanted to ask you something before Norman gets here. I nod. If today's meeting changes direction, can you separate the business from your childhood? The question lands harder than I expect. I believe so. Believe. I know I can. Arthur studies my face. For years, people underestimated you. Yes. They'll try something different today. What? They'll finally acknowledge your value. I don't answer, because I already know what comes after that. Need. Arthur continues. Be careful. Respect earned out of desperation isn't respect. It's dependency. Before I can respond, Nathan opens the door. They're here. Arthur simply says, let's begin. Norman walks in first. Perfect navy suit. Polished shoes. Confident smile. Anyone looking at him would think he owns the room. Jolie follows. She looks exhausted. Becky comes last. Designer handbag. Expensive watch. But today, she isn't smiling. She keeps checking her phone every few seconds. Norman extends his hand toward Arthur. Mr. Hayes. Arthur shakes it once. Norman. No titles. No warmth. No small talk. Everyone sits. Nathan distributes bottled water. Nobody touches it. Norman begins exactly as expected. Our company is entering an exciting growth phase. Nathan lowers his eyes. Arthur remains expressionless. Norman continues. We're looking for strategic capital. Arthur says nothing. Norman mistakes the silence for interest. Our expansion projections are extremely strong. Arthur finally speaks. Based on which numbers? Norman blinks. The reports. Which reports? Our internal forecasts. Arthur slowly slides another folder across the table. My analysts prepared these. Norman opens it. The confidence disappears almost immediately. Every page contains numbers he wasn't expecting. Cancelled contracts. Supplier complaints. Cash flow deterioration. Debt exposure. Projected insolvency scenarios. Becky's breathing becomes noticeably faster. Norman flips another page. Then another. His jaw tightens. These assumptions are exaggerated. Nathan answers calmly. They're based on your audited financial statements. Norman looks toward him. You are. Nathan Wolfe. Corporate counsel. Norman turns back toward Arthur. With respect. Your people misunderstood our strategy. Arthur leans back. No. They understood it. They simply didn't confuse optimism with liquidity. The room becomes painfully quiet. Norman forces another smile. Every company faces temporary pressure. Arthur nods. True. But not every company uses operating cash to finance luxury spending. Becky suddenly looks at her father. Norman doesn't move. Arthur continues. 3 properties. 2 luxury vehicles. Country club memberships. Private withdrawals. He closes the folder. My question isn't why your company needs capital. It's why you treated it like a personal checking account. No one speaks. Not even Becky. Norman clears his throat. If we move past the numbers, I believe we can build a profitable partnership. Arthur folds his hands. I don't build partnerships. I build accountability. Another silence. Norman looks directly at Arthur. So, what exactly would convince you to invest? Arthur doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly turns his head toward me. Norman follows his eyes. For the first time since entering the room, he actually looks at me, not as his daughter, as someone sitting on the opposite side of the negotiation table. Arthur speaks quietly. That depends on her. Norman frowns. I'm sorry. Arthur keeps his eyes on me. Every recommendation regarding Donovan Industrial comes from Roxy. Norman laughs. A short laugh. Disbelieving. Then he realizes no one else is laughing. His smile disappears. He looks at Nathan. Then at Arthur. Then back at me. What does that mean? Nathan answers before anyone else can. It means Miss Donovan is leading this acquisition review. The color drains from Norman's face. Becky slowly turns toward me. No, she whispers. That's impossible. I finally speak. No, it's simply something none of you ever imagined. Norman stares at me. For several long seconds, he cannot form a single sentence. The same man who once called me a bad investment now realizes the future of his company is sitting across the table. And for the first time in his life, he has absolutely no control over me. Then, instead of arguing, instead of threatening, instead of walking away, Norman does something I never thought I would see. He quietly pushes every document aside, looks directly into my eyes, and says the words that change the balance of power forever. Roxy, tell me what it'll take to save my company. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. Norman's question hangs over the room like something none of us ever expected to hear. Roxy, tell me what it'll take to save my company. 7 years ago, he wouldn't even loan me $2,000. Today, he's asking what it will cost to save everything he owns. I don't answer immediately, not because I want to make him suffer, because this is no longer a family conversation. It's a negotiation. Arthur waits. Nathan remains silent. They're both watching to see whether I become Norman's daughter again, or remain the executive leading this transaction. I choose. I close the financial report in front of me. First, I need complete honesty. Norman nods immediately. Of course. No. I shake my head. Not the version you've been telling banks. The real one. His jaw tightens. Our situation isn't as bad as... Nathan calmly slides another document across the table. It's worse. Norman opens it. His eyes widen. Where did you get this? Our forensic review. He flips another page. Then another. Every transfer. Every withdrawal. Every unpaid invoice. Every delayed payroll. Nothing has escaped the audit. Becky's breathing becomes uneven. She reaches for the papers. What is this? Nathan answers. The last 24 months. She scans the numbers. No. Her voice cracks. This isn't right. It is. She looks at Norman. Dad, you said everything was temporary. Norman doesn't answer. Arthur finally speaks. The company didn't fail because of one bad year. It failed because every warning was ignored. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Norman slowly removes his glasses. For the first time since I've entered this room, he looks old. Not powerful. Not intimidating. Just tired. He exhales. Fine. His voice is barely above a whisper. We have liquidity problems. Nathan doesn't react. Arthur doesn't react. Neither do I. Norman continues. Our largest client left. The bank started pulling back. I thought we could outgrow the problem. You borrowed more. I finish his sentence. To buy time. He nods once. I thought Becky would turn things around. My eyes move toward my sister. She's staring at the table, completely motionless. Arthur folds his hands. And did she? Nobody answers. Because everyone already knows. Becky finally whispers. I tried. I believe her. She did try. The problem is that trying isn't the same as knowing. Norman spent years confusing confidence with competence. Now both are bankrupt. Arthur turns toward me. Your recommendation? Every eye in the room shifts to me. This is the moment. The one I've imagined in 100 different ways over the years. In every version. I thought I'd enjoy it. I don't. Because revenge always feels different when the people sitting across from you are still your family. I open my notebook. There are only 2 realistic options. Nathan already knows them. Arthur knows them too. Norman doesn't. Option 1. The banks force restructuring. You lose control anyway. Employees lose jobs. Suppliers lose money. The company becomes worth even less. Norman closes his eyes. And option 2? I hold his gaze. We invest. Hope flashes across his face. Then I continue. But not under your current structure. His expression changes instantly. What does that mean? It means new governance. Independent financial oversight. No personal withdrawals. Every executive expense approved externally. Nathan quietly adds. Mandatory quarterly audits. Arthur nods. Continue. I do. Becky's company becomes completely separate. No more shared liabilities. No more guarantees. No more family money moving between businesses. Becky finally looks up. You want to cut me off? I answer honestly. I want to stop destroying 2 companies instead of 1. She flinches. Not because I raised my voice. Because I didn't. Norman leans forward. And me. You remain. Relief appears. For half a second. As CEO under performance review. The relief disappears. What? You no longer control the board. You no longer approve compensation. You no longer move company money without authorization. His face turns red. So I'd be working for people who don't understand my business? No. I answer quietly. You'd finally be working with people who protect it. Silence. Norman looks at Arthur. This was your plan all along. Arthur shakes his head. No. This was hers. He points toward me. I only gave her the opportunity. Norman slowly turns back. His eyes stay on mine. I called you a bad investment. Yes. I was wrong. The room becomes completely still. 7 years. 7 years waiting to hear those words. And somehow, they don't erase anything. I know. That's all I say. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cruel. Just the truth. Norman swallows hard. If I accept, can we still be a family? The question catches me off guard. Not because of the words. Because for the first time, he isn't asking about money. He's asking about us. I take a slow breath. You don't rebuild a family by signing documents. You rebuild it by making different choices. Jolie quietly begins crying. Real tears. Not the kind meant to stop an argument. The kind that come when excuses finally disappear. Arthur stands. I'll give you 24 hours. He buttons his jacket. Accept the proposal, or the banks will make the decision for you. He walks toward the door. Nathan follows. Before leaving, Arthur looks back at me. Only me. Well done. Then they're gone. The conference room becomes silent again. Only the 4 of us remain. For the first time in our lives, no one knows what to say. Then Becky's phone suddenly rings. She answers, listens for less than 10 seconds. The color drains from her face. She slowly lowers the phone, looks at Norman, and whispers the sentence that proves 24 hours may already be too late. Dad, they've frozen our business accounts. Nobody leaves. Nobody even reaches for the door. Becky's phone is still trembling in her hand. She looks down at the screen again, as if the words might somehow change. They froze everything. Her voice barely exists. Our payroll account. The operating account. Everything. Norman grabs the phone. What? He reads the email. Then another. Then another. Each message is worse than the last. One bank has suspended access pending a financial review. Another has frozen additional lending. A third has canceled an emergency credit extension they had been negotiating all week. The dominoes aren't beginning to fall. They're already hitting the ground. Norman slowly lowers the phone. His face has completely changed. For the first time in my life, I don't see confidence. I don't even see anger. I see fear. Real fear. Not fear of losing money. Fear of losing everything. He looks at me. They've never moved this fast. Nathan calmly answers. They're not reacting to today's numbers. They're reacting to months of declining confidence. Norman runs both hands across his face. I can fix this. Nathan doesn't interrupt him. I just need more time. Arthur quietly replies. Time is the one asset you've already spent. Silence. Long. Heavy. Then Becky suddenly stands. This isn't fair. Everyone turns toward her. We were supposed to recover. I had investors coming. I had new contracts. Nathan opens another report. 2 investors withdrew yesterday. 1 this morning. And both contracts were contingent on financing that no longer exists. Her shoulders collapse. No. She shakes her head repeatedly. No. Norman walks toward her. It's okay. We'll figure something out. Those words stop me cold. We'll figure something out. The exact sentence he gave Becky every single time she failed. The sentence I never heard. When my transmission failed, I figured it out. When I needed my certification, I figured it out. When I worked 3 jobs, I figured it out. Every difficult moment of my life came with exactly one instruction. Figure it out. Now. For the first time, those words are directed back at him. I stand. So. Norman looks at me. What now? I meet his eyes. Figure it out. The room goes completely silent. Not because I shouted, because I didn't. He stares at me. For a brief second, I see him remembering. The certification, the dinner table, the newspaper, the laugh, every word he ever threw at me. His shoulders sink. I deserve that. Yes, I do. Jolie quietly begins crying again. She steps toward me. I should have stopped him. You should have. I knew. Another confession. I knew every time he chose Becky. I knew every time he ignored you. I kept telling myself I was protecting the family. I gently shake my head. No. You were protecting peace. They're not the same thing. She closes her eyes. Because she knows it's true. Arthur stands. I think we're finished here. Norman suddenly speaks. Wait. Arthur stops. If we accept everything, will the company survive? Arthur doesn't answer. Instead, he looks at me. Again, the decision belongs to me. Not because I own the company. Because I understand it. I answer honestly. If everyone stops protecting their pride, yes. If anyone lies again, no. Norman slowly nods. I'll sign. Nathan immediately places the restructuring agreement on the table. No dramatic music. No celebration. Just paper, pens, consequences. Norman signs first. His signature is slower than I have ever seen. Jolie signs the family guarantees, releasing the company from personal transfers. Then Becky. She hesitates, long enough to look at her father. He simply nods. She signs. The moment her pen leaves the paper, something inside the room changes. Not victory. Relief. Arthur closes the folder. It'll be difficult. It should be. Then he walks out. Nathan follows him. I stay behind. Norman carefully places the pen on the table. I spent years believing money proved someone's worth. He looks directly at me. I invested in the daughter who needed me, instead of the daughter who never stopped building without me. I don't answer, because nothing I could say would punish him more than finally understanding it himself. I pick up my bag. As I reach the door, Norman calls my name one last time. Roxy. I turn. I'm proud of you. 7 years ago, those were the only 4 words I wanted to hear. Today, they no longer have the power they once did. I smile, not because he finally said them, because I no longer need them. I'm proud of me too. Then I leave. The company survives, not because one person saves it, because accountability finally replaces favoritism. Becky's business enters bankruptcy 6 months later. For the first time in her life, she takes a job. She calls me one evening, not asking for money, asking for advice. We meet for coffee every few weeks now. Slowly, we become sisters instead of competitors. Jolie begins volunteering for organizations that help young women pay for professional certifications. She tells me it's the only way she knows to make peace with the years she stayed silent. Norman remains CEO for another 18 months. Under independent oversight, when he retires, he leaves quietly. No speeches, no awards, just a handwritten letter waiting on my desk. Inside is a copy of the old check for $180,000. Across the front, in his handwriting, are 6 simple words. I invested in the wrong daughter. I fold the check, place it back inside the envelope, and leave it there, because my greatest return was never watching my father lose power. It was realizing that the day he called me a bad investment, he accidentally gave me the determination to become the best one he never believed in.